When a new potential client walks through those doors of that martial arts studios, they have the opportunity of making a life-changing decision. But sometimes they say no. And it's frustrating because we know that they don't know what they're saying no to. Welcome to the Black Belt Sales Training Program. When a prospect says no, you may even blame it on that client, thinking they just don't get it. They're dumb. They don't know what's at stake. Let's look at why there is often a disconnect in the sales situation. You are using the most sophisticated, most rational part of the brain to send the information to that potential client, the neocortex. You assume that the prospect is using the same part of their brain to receive it. Not so. This part of the brain is reserved for figuring out and communicating complex solutions. It takes up a tremendous amount of energy. You have to use the neocortex because you are working hard to solve problems for your prospect. You have tons of knowledge in martial arts and the effect on your past students. You have tons of knowledge in self-defense and what could happen without it. You have tons of knowledge on the karate industry and other methods. And you have a ton of knowledge on your own martial arts studio and how it positively impacts students. According to psychologists, when your prospects are receiving all this information, they are saving that advanced neocortex part of the brain for analytical, complex, problem-solving situations. They simply aren't using it. So what part of the brain are they using to receive this information? The very small, teeny tiny, top of the spinal cord that can't process the information that is so familiar to you, the primal brain. Let's look at how information is filtered in the brain. The primal brain is used for life functions. We can actually survive with only this small, teeny part of our brain working. The midbrain is the limbic system, and it is composed of parts like the amygdala, hippocampus, hypothalamus, and it's used for reacting to danger. If you say the wrong thing, this part of the brain will say no to your services in a millisecond. It blocks out anything that is not familiar, and it categorizes that as danger. Now, the outer brain is the largest part of the brain, and it's used for complex problem solving. It's the slowest part of the brain, and it uses the most energy, and unfortunately is usually not engaged as often as we'd like to believe. This explains the common disconnect between salespeople and prospects. It's not that salespeople are selfish and trying to get somebody to do something they don't want to do. The issue a lot of times is that they really care about the person and they know a lot about their services. They know so much about their services that they're using a different part of their brain to communicate than that potential client is using to take it in. And confused prospects do not make decisions. That's why we hear things like, let me think about it. I need to talk with my spouse. I don't have enough time right now. I'll get back with you. Your information must get up into the problem-solving part of the brain for them to invest the time and the money. People do not pull out a credit card or spend money unless there's some type of problem being solved, some type of need being fulfilled. I want to introduce you to a 4-step template that's going to help you more effectively communicate with potential clients. This is extremely powerful. Don't talk about your programs. Talk about the problems that your programs solve. State a problem that you solve. State the ramifications of if it isn't solved. What are the ramifications of that? Then state how you solve it. And then the last part, step 4, all we're doing is saying so that whatever we stated in number 2 doesn't happen. Let's look at this template a little bit deeper as we connect with the client's decision-making part of their brain. The one thing that's most important about this template is to keep these sentences as short as possible. When we're talking to those potential clients, know that the information we're giving them is being filtered by the primal part of their brain. The shorter, the more concise, and the more literal your sentences are, the more of your message is going to get into that problem-solving part of the brain, and the more likely that they're going to make a life-changing commitment to their success. Let's look at some examples. Problems, ramifications, solution, outcome for the client. Really simple. What's a problem that your services solve? Well, one of those problems is kids get picked on. It can be that simple. That's all we need to say. Kids get picked on. What are the ramifications of a child being picked on? Well, let's look at one of them. This can lower their self-esteem. Allow them to respond. They're going to be in agreement with you, and they may be adding on some type of example, sometime that they've seen this happen. Then you just state your solution. Martial arts gives kids the ability to handle these situations. And then step 4, so that their self-esteem isn't lowered. If you only communicate that and they took that in, they are now using the most sophisticated, complex part of their brain to make a life-changing decision. Let's look at another example. What's a problem? Well, not everybody thinks like us. There's people out there that are mean and just think different. So we may say something like this. Not everybody thinks like us. They may start a fight or insult somebody that we're out to dinner with. What are the ramifications of that actually happening? Well, let's look at one of them. If we don't have self-defense training, we may get scared and regret not standing up for what's right. Allow the prospect to answer, and then we're going to state a simple solution. We teach real-world applicable self-defense so that our students never get scared and have the ability to stand up for what's right if they choose to. Now, these aren't scripts to memorize. What this is a template that you can plug any information into that increases your communications. Let's look at another example. Problem. Bullies can sense confidence. Ramifications of bullies being able to sense confidence. What are those ramifications? If a kid doesn't have confidence, then he or she may get picked on by a bully. Solution. Martial arts gives kids confidence. And the outcome? So that they are less likely to get picked on. Remember this template. State a problem. And this is something that they're not going to challenge in their head. It should be objective as possible. You wouldn't want to state something like Democrats are nicer than Republicans. Obviously, somebody could challenge that in their head, and then the whole thing falls apart. So we want to state a problem that's objective, and they're not going to challenge in their head. They will agree with it. Once they do, everything else is teed up for them to think differently. State a problem, the ramifications of if that problem isn't solved, your solution, how do you solve it? And then number 4 is just so that whatever you stated in number 2 doesn't happen. I want to give you an example of how I might use this in my business. I teach sales skills to high-level entrepreneurs. So I may say something like, for a problem, people are afraid of commitment. For the ramifications, I may say something like, if prospects don't commit, then that skilled entrepreneur can just end up with a bunch of people on the fence almost ready to do something. The solution. I teach real-world applicable sales skills so that those entrepreneurs don't end up with a bunch of people on the fence almost ready to do something. The moment you do this and use this template, you're creating intrigue. What doesn't create intrigue is giving information. What creates intrigue is holding back information. And how we're holding back information is we're not talking about the solution the entire time. We're not talking about our products. We're not talking about our services. We're not talking about how great everything's going to be once somebody has our services. We're just stating this problem that is solved, and the ramifications is what turns the gut inside those potential clients so they feel like solving it. Know this template. Problem, ramifications, solution, so the ramifications simply don't happen. Do you remember how awkward it was your very first martial arts class? You might have been extremely young, maybe you're an adult, but at first you didn't know how to perform these moves, and it was awkward and daunting. The new phrasing of your sentences will feel awkward. Don't quit. You will enjoy these new communication techniques once you master them. Earn and honor rank. After completion of each course, you will receive the next color belt. Remember, a black belt in martial arts is just a white belt that didn't quit. Don't quit. We've gone over how much of a life-changing decision it is to make a decision to get a black belt. Gone over how sometimes a prospect makes the decision no, and they don't know what they're saying no to. We've talked about in depth with neuroscience how salespeople communicate using the sophisticated neocortex part of the brain, but the prospect receives the communications with a very small primal part of their brain. Often this can create a disconnect. It's really important to know that confused prospects don't make decisions. We now know a powerful 4-step template that we can use throughout the sales process for more effective communications. My name's Dan Bowe with The Selling Shop, a sales training center for highly skilled entrepreneurs.